energy for tomorrow.
Olalekan, Ogunleye, the Executive Vice President for Gas, Power, and New Energy for the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited.
Good morning, and thanks for coming out so early.
So tell us about your experience with gas, your experience with gas. What do you think about gas, and what does gas mean for Africa?
Over my 31 years, I'd like to break it into 3 decades. So in my first decade, it was clear that Nigeria was gas-rich, but gas was second fiddle. The focus was on exploration for oil, commercialization of oil, and there were a bit of non-associated gas plays, and there was a lot of struggle to commercialize that. And back in the days, it was, how to deal with, the gas that was available through commercialization. And so NNPC took the leadership, and Nigeria LNG was developed as a project. And today, just with one project, you have 45% reduction in gas flaring in Nigeria. So that's tremendous. And so in the first decade, it was low. Emphasis on gas was low. In the second decade, gas, it was sort of medium. Gas started gaining prominence. And NNPC, again, was at the forefront of pushing 2 land-based LNG projects. The West African gas project was launched to basically commercialize gas, across the West Africa, because gas for us in Africa is a tool for regional integration as well as a commercial product. Mm-hmm. So in the second decade, it was mixed. The third decade is the decade I would like to call the decade of gas. And gas came into its own, came into fruition. And the whole of the Nigerian society aligned to accelerate the commercialization of gas. It's at every level. And so we have this interesting convergence. And it's been interesting. But we're not there yet. There are challenges, as you know. One of the biggest challenges, in my view, is that gas sector participants have been a bit restrained in advocating for gas, in highlighting the benefits of gas as a tool for human progress. In just speaking for our product, our way of life, and in making sure that we are not by ourselves demarketing gas. And so this is a major statement and a major takeaway from this conference, that as gas participants, we need to be very upfront in advocating for gas. So to your last point about what gas means for Africa, both the IEA and the World Bank are unanimous in the fact that access to energy translates to better living conditions. And so for us in Africa, gas is that ultimate tool for economic development, for growing economies, and for delivering better standards of living for the people. And most importantly, in our own clean energy journey and vision, gas still has a role. In Nigeria, it is eliminating gas flare, because as we speak, 7% of the gas produced in Nigeria is flared. And so it's an absolute priority of NNPC leadership. And so NNPC is at the forefront of the gas commercialization program, just turning the flares into products. For us, again, from a clean energy perspective, the World Bank is clear that over 900 million people in Africa are using poor cooking fuel. And so that's a major challenge that we've embraced. And so it's LPG expansion. And that's why the government position and NNPC is again leading this to make sure that all the propane and butane produced in Nigeria are commercialized and used in country to grow availability and then deal with affordability through expansion of butane and propane. So it doesn't stop there. Auto CNG, we are also in the forefront of changing society from petrol and diesel and leveraging on our gas resource for internal combustion of automobile. And so gas is a very resilient product, and the major issue is that all the folks writing the obituary of gas should just hold their peace. Gas is not just going to be here in the near and mid-term, it's going to be part of the energy mix in the long term. Thank you very much.
NNPC has been undergoing a historic transformation. Started a few years ago. You went from being a statist, traditional national oil company to a lean, mean, nimble, limited liability corporation. What does this mean for your business? How is, in your experience over several decades working in the sector, how are things different today than they were a few years ago?
Thanks, Dan. So the main thing is that NNPC has become an integrated energy company.
So it's gone from being a national oil company to national energy company.
Yeah, an integrated energy company. And
found the UNOC model, of course.
Yeah, so what has changed? The most important aspect, in my view, is the focus on transparency and accountability. And so the NNPC leadership for over 5 years now has been pushing this STEP agenda, which focuses on transparency, accountability, performance, and excellence. And so we're setting a very high bar, and it's a journey that we're committed to. So that's important. For us, transparency and accountability is fundamental for our business. And we are consummating relationships with activist groups like the NIT, transparency organizations in Nigeria and outside the country. So that's very important. And the transparency also has a commercial component to it, because it then makes us attractive to partners. And it also helps us with attracting investment. And so that's fundamental. What has changed? What has changed also is the new emphasis on research, technology, and innovation. And so for me, for someone who joined NNPC at 24 years, which is like marrying your secondary school boyfriend, it's been very fascinating that the current NNPC leadership is emphasizing science and technology, because that's what we need to local science and technology. And so that's something that I find fascinating. Most importantly is the GCO says all the time, NNPC is open for business. But in my space, gas, power, and new energy, we have the additional obligation of practically demonstrating that we are open for business, that we can be rigorous in scrutinizing opportunities to make sure that they are indeed value-adding, and that we can, present performance and, continue to relentlessly generate incremental value. So it's an exciting time, and indeed, NNPC is open for business. We are the biggest corporate in Africa, with the biggest resources, with the biggest market, and our ambition is not just to be an African champion. We are relentlessly improving our processes and our commercial outcomes to be able to compete globally. So that's the target.
Olalekan, I want to ask you about your title. It's gas, power, and new energy. So it's 3 separate sectors. Why does NNPC group these sectors together, and how do they relate to each other? Are they separate businesses, or are there dependencies?
So I'll start with a short form answer. They are separate businesses, but related. But
that resolved nothing.
Yeah, but to fully answer your question, I want to give a bit of context and to perspective. The first is that in 2021, specifically 11th August 2021, the Petroleum Industry Act was passed into law in Nigeria, and this is the comprehensive legislation for the oil and gas business, geared around incentivizing investments and providing clarity for all oil and gas sector participants. On the back of that, NNPC became a purely commercial entity, a limited liability entity that had to operate and rely on its balance sheet and source for funding like everybody else. And NNPC itself had to reimagine its business, right? And as a part of that reimagination of business, there was a need to accelerate gas development and gas commercialization, and also address the issue of electricity, access to electricity, which we saw as both a challenge and as an opportunity. But in NNPC, we turned challenges to opportunities. And so the gas power and new energy business was created basically to deal with the issue of availability, working closely with the upstream to provide the commercial avenues that they need to then muster the resources they need to develop gas resources. It's NAG, it's offshore, onshore, deep water. And the government is playing its part by providing the enablers through additional incentives. So the gas speaks to the power. The power side of the business is a commercial response to the gaps that we see in electricity availability in the country. As we speak, NNPC is developing a minimum of 1,000 megawatts of power, new power projects. But more importantly, we have over 5,000 megawatts under consideration with partners, because our new operating model is win-win partnerships. So we have different collaborations. And so there's a linkage.
And power development as well?
Sorry?
And things like power development as well?
Absolutely. So there's a linkage between the gas availability. So it's gas to gas-based industry. It's NLNG Train 7. We're talking about potential Train 8. Is the leadership, the GC of NNPC, frankly, has given us a specific mandate that in the next 3 years, we need to take FID on 2 floating LNG projects each year. As we speak, we are geared to take FID on 2 floating LNG. One is 2.2 MTPA per annum. The second is 2.7 MTPA per annum. And for the next 3 years, the plan. So the race for value creation, value winning is on. There's a linkage between the gas and the power business. And then the new energy speaks to our sustainability and our clean energy ambitions. And for us, we don't have the luxury of doing clean energy just for optics. For us, it's a business necessity. We need to clean up our business. Like I said earlier on, we're focusing on the low-hanging fruits, gas-free commercialization, LPG, the CNG initiatives, NNPC. With its partners, we're building CNG plants all over the country. The mandate is clear. Our CNG business must be a new value hub. And so,
sorry, is it
a new value hub.
Oh, okay.
A new value hub. So that's what the focus is. So absolutely, there's a linkage between the gas side of things and the power side, and as well as new energy. And we are also—
So they're separate businesses, but they're linked.
Yeah, and we're also experimenting with hybrid power projects. So this year, we are promoting and advancing with 2 projects, basically industrial power plants, power parks, sorry, that will be basically gas to power and solar, and we'll have a solar component as well. The solar bit would deal with the facilities and all that. So we're experimenting with that. So
okay,
separate, but related.
Great.
Energy for today, energy for tomorrow.